All right, okay. Hello and welcome to our August Java Nashville, not just Java user groups happening in September. So confusing. But yeah, we wanted to accommodate our speaker, and here he is. Jason Lee with Red Hat, and it's a very exciting topic, and Jason is a great speaker, so we wanted to make it happen. This is why we kind of postponed it in a week. So yeah, we're going to talk about GitHub applications written not in JavaScript. That's the exciting thing about it. This is your organizing crew. Kate is over there. Phil is over there. My name is Baruch. I'm right here. And thank you to our sponsors, Gradle, for the swag. Everybody have t-shirts. And stickers and food, by the way, and drinks. You should eat and drink for 30 people that are supposed to be here. Sorry. So yeah, just go ahead and finish everything. Thank you, Gradle. Java community process celebrates 25 years. Java celebrates 30 next year. Stickers again and swag. Greater Nashville Technology Council and TechKill Commons, thank you for hosting us when no one else wanted, but also not only. So yeah, it's a great venue, so thank you very much. O'Reilly. O'Reilly sent us tons of books, and this time they just like went crazy with the amount of books and the variety. So we will raffle. So everybody get a prize, I guess, something like that. There's a lot of great books there, so we will do the raffle or just hang out of the books later. JetBrains, and their free licenses, and we upgraded. I put my kid's printer to work, and we actually have printed licenses. So we will raffle, right? So we will raffle those as well. What else? Conferences, yes, a bunch of, not bunch, but some Java conferences, really nice ones happening in the broader vicinity of long drive, short flight distance. The first is happening in the end of September, a couple of weeks. I have a build-up for that. Here we go. Happens in Dallas, September 24th to 26th. It's organized by the awesome people who bring us DevNexus in April next year. We're going to talk about that closer. And there are tons of speakers, including myself, tons of sessions, very good ones. And one discount code. See me speak because I'm speaking. So use that to sign up, get a discount. Awesome stuff. The second conference is in Denver, October 1st to 3rd, organized by Dr. Venkat, and again, tons of speakers, including myself, tons of sessions, and you have also discount by scanning this QR code. This is also like a short flight, definitely worth it. You really should visit both, or at least one of them. Job talk. Anyone? Well, we're not in Vaco, so it kind of maybe less effective, but if anyone wants to air their hiring or looking for a job, that would be great. And if everybody are good with their job, that's even better. Well, all right, next time. Yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say, I just found out last Wednesday that the project, I work for a federal subcontractor. The project that I'm working on, we finished it early, but it's ending in the end of September, so if they don't have another project for me to move on to.
All right, and your background is?
What's that?
Your background, Java developer?
Yeah, Java, Python, JavaScript, kind of a mixture.
So folks, if you have, someone who hiring, go for it. Oh, right. Raffles is after the talk. Oh, yeah. Go for it. Yes.
I'm actually looking for my first ever software engineer job.
Yeah.
online. Java, JavaScript, C#, Python.
Yeah.
Python.
Yeah, it's Python. Yeah.
I'm always open to learn new things, and I just can't get enough of this stuff. So.
Sounds good. The good news are that summer is over. The season of hiring, whatever limited it is this year, started. After Labor Day, we see a little bit of up peak for interest. So yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, should be easier than it was during the summer, that's for sure. All right, and we have the raffle, but we do the raffle after. So with that, Jason, stage is yours.
All right.
All right.
We'll see how, after I bragged about Fedora, we'll see how it does here.
Well, it's Linux. I don't expect it to like just work.
It works great at home.
When it works, of course it works great. No doubt about it.
No, Linux is one of the best operating systems.
Absolutely, especially when you connect it to a projector or want to hear sound.
I can kind of see the screen back there. Oh, there we go.
Look at that.
Look at that, that is beautiful. All right, so I'm going to assume the mic is working and just plow right ahead. So this is Supersonic Subatomic GitHub. If you're familiar with Quarkus, you've heard that tagline before, Supersonic Subatomic. Quarkus does a lot at build time to kind of optimize things, so your startup is super fast, your runtime is much smaller. It's a great platform, so that's what we're going to be dealing with. I am Jason Lee, Principal Software Engineer at Red Hat. I think I've got a slide that actually talks about that. There we go. Principal Software Engineer, fancy title, meaning I'm old and been there a while. Been doing software since '97. I am a Java champion. I run the Oklahoma City JUG, or help run it. Well, I do most of the work these days, but that's my own fault. I wrote a book, Java 9 Programming Blueprints. It's Java 9, I think we're knocking on the door at 24, but I put a lot of work into that, and my wife spent many hours proofreading it, so I leave it in there because I'm proud of it. And I'm a blogger, jasondl.ee, nice little vanity thing there. I don't blog as often as much as I used to, or as much as I would like, but let's do it. I'm going to unify these screens so I can see better what I'm looking at. There we go. All right, miscellaneous, in case you're curious about what I do in my spare time. Martial arts, we talked about that, karate and jiu-jitsu for years and years. I play bass guitar. In case any of you are gearheads, I have a Fender Jazz and a Warwick Corvette, a 4-string and a 5-string, and a couple others. So we can talk about that later too if you want. And I like to smoke meats. That's kind of a new thing. Got a pellet smoker, and it's kind of changed how I cook things. So that's what I do in my spare time, other than spend time with my family. And we talked about this before. In case you missed that, this was us in Paris, fun little trip for a high school marching band. Left to right, that's me, my wife, who's back in the corner, and then Noah, who's a high school senior, and Andrew is a college senior. And then there's the rest of my family. This is Sophie. She's our basset hound. She'll be, what, 4 years old, I think? There she's helping me push out a wildfly release at Christmas last fall, I think. She's extremely helpful. With that aside, what we're going to cover today is what is a GitHub application? Why should you care? Why would you use Java? Why would you use Quarkus? And then we're going to build an app. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to try to spend as little time in slides as I can. All the information I'm going to share should be in a slide, but we're going to try to do live coding, which is, I think, more interesting for you, more terrifying for me, but hopefully, I haven't built on this Wi-Fi, but everything should be cached locally. We'll see. So a GitHub application, and I copied this from the website. It's applications can do things on GitHub like open issues, comment and pull requests, and manage projects. They can also do things outside GitHub based on events that happen on GitHub. So you've done GitHub Actions. Everybody kind of familiar with the GitHub Actions and the CI pipeline. It's a lot like that, but sort of expanded. You host it yourself. It doesn't run on the GitHub infrastructure. And as we'll see, it's an application you write. So you've got a lot more flexibility with what you can do. Some example cases, and we actually, I think, do most of these with the Wildfly project. Validate issue, comment, or PR format details. This is one of the primary, or the initial things we started using for on Wildfly. When you submit an issue, is there a JIRA attached to it? When you open a PR, is there a JIRA? Is there certain descriptions? And we can validate some of that stuff and ping the submitter or take other actions as necessary. Control CI/CD jobs. If we use TeamCity and we've got a nice integration with that, but if you use something else, you want to kick off a job based on what happens on GitHub, you can do that from your app, and it's all controlled, so you're not necessarily sharing secrets on the cloud. Interact with the issue tracker, whether it's the GitHub issues or JIRA or UTrack, or you can take your pick. Or if you want to do something like send messages via SMS, email, chat, etc., and we'll actually have like a faked up demo of that just to show that that's what you can do. All right, so why would we use Java? If you go to the official GitHub Apps documentation, it's all going to be in JavaScript, which is sad. But I get it, it's fine. And I may be preaching to the choir here, but that's fine. It's a mature, battle-tested language. It's nice and solid. And especially for this group, it's a language we already know, likely. The great global community, if you need help, there's always someone you can talk to, immense number of libraries, frameworks, etc. So if you are a Java shop and you want to write a GitHub application for whatever reason, you don't have to give up all the libraries that you know. For the most part, you should be able to use pretty much anything you want. If you're a Spring shop, this might be a little weird because this is written with Quarkus, but so some of the Spring libraries may not translate. But anything else you want to use, it's just a Java application. So you're free to do whatever it is you want to do. And most importantly, it's not JavaScript. It does a lot of things for a lot of people, but it's a terrible language. Your mileage may vary. I'm not a big fan, but it's nice not have to write. Every time I use JavaScript, I get frustrated, but that's fine. So why would you use Quarkus? Again, there's a lot of different options you can use, but it's going to leverage your existing Java JVM knowledge, kind of continue on with why use Java, especially if you're already using Quarkus, or if you are writing really any kind of a Jakarta EE application. This is going to look extremely familiar to you. It's got full CDI integration, and it leverages, like most of Quarkus, leverages CDI for just about everything it does. So if you're familiar with writing like a Jakarta REST, JAX-RS application, this is going to look very, very similar for you. It's easily unit testable. The Quarkus GitHub app extension has some glue code in there, so it's easy to test the application. You don't have to run on GitHub, deploy it and try some things and just pray that it works. You can actually run full unit tests that run locally, even with the network off, assuming you've cached things before you start. Native compilation, if that's a big deal for you, you can take your Quarkus app, compile it down to a Linux, Mac, or Windows executable, deploy that to whatever your host is, and just let it do its thing. So you get that small runtime, that fast startup that you get, all the benefits you get from native compilation. All right, so building the GitHub app, I think, yes, this is where I'm going to try to jump off the slides, and we're going to try to do this live. Now you see I've got a couple applications there that I've left because I've learned in the past from cleaning up after myself that when things go sideways, I need to look at something that works. So I've got a couple working examples there. Well, let me switch back just to give you kind of a highlight. Okay, well, these are basically the steps that I just raced right through. You register with GitHub. There's some work you'll do on the website. Install the application. Again, that's just kind of tying things together. You're going to code the app and profit. That's the joke that's been around for 2 decades now, probably. But you can actually do that. There's a GitHub marketplace. You can deploy your app and charge people for it, I guess. I've not really looked into it, so I'm not sure how that works or if it's economically worth it, but you can do it. Okay, now this is where we'll jump off. So we're going to start with registering the app with GitHub. So if you go to github.com/settings/apps, you'll see this page. We'll make it bigger. It's super simple to set up. There's a lot of options. And I've got to switch to my phone here for. Hopefully the text will come in soon. But it doesn't seem to want to, so we'll do a little 2FA here. Oh, well, there it is. I thought about turning off security so I wouldn't have to do that, but that sounded like a terrible idea. All right, so once we get to this page, there are a lot of options on this, you'll see as we scroll down through it. Not all of them are super important to understand up front, so we're going to skip a lot of those. We're just kind of fill in what's necessary. It is going to need a name, and it is going to need to be unique. I tried demo app in the hotel, and it told me it was already taken. So this is the Nashville, not just Java, JUG. That's a lot of J's. It's close. You know what? I'm going to have to type that again and again, so I'm just calling it the NJUG. How's that? So we give it a name. You want that to be something meaningful, obviously. It does need a homepage URL. This is purely for marketing. If someone goes to your app's homepage and you want to direct them to documentation or what have you. So you can put anything there. I typically just put in my blog because it's easy. Now the callback URL, we'll come back to that in just a minute. Likely though, you're going to deploy this app behind a firewall. I hope you are. If not, you need to go hire some network security people. But since it's behind a firewall, you're going to need to find some way to get data to that. And we're on a Wi-Fi here in a demo. We're not going to drill a hole through a firewall and set up, a proxy like Nginx or whatever. But there's a service that allows us to kind of work around that, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. Excuse me?
Proxy.
A proxy, yes. Actually, we'll go and do it now because it's called SME, and I'm a fan of a good pun just about any day. But it's a webhook, and if you're familiar with Peter Pan, you've got Captain Hook was his nemesis, and Captain Hook's right-hand man was Mr. Smee. So I'm hoping that's where that came from because I think that's pretty funny. So just go to sme.io and click New Channel, and it's going to create this URL for you. So you want to copy that and make sure you don't lose that. We'll leave the tab open so we don't lose it. But we'll come back here, and this will be the callback URL. Well, I think... Nope, sorry. That's the wrong field. It is down here on the webhook URL. So when something happens on GitHub, it's going to, this is actually where you would put the deployment address for your app if it's in production, but since we're in development, we're going to use SME to kind of work around the firewall issues. You can put a secret in here. I'm not going to today just because we'll just keep it simple. But this how calls coming into your application will be authenticated. So you're going to want something there that is secure and secret, just so that if someone discovers your endpoint, they don't start posting things to it and doing weird things to your setup. All right, repository permissions, we're going to expand that, and you can see you've got access to a lot of different things that you can do. You know, actions, administrations, checks, code scanning alerts. You can repository, repository events somewhere in there. So, yeah, so you can control basically any aspect of your repository, your projects, your account. So you have to be real careful with that. What we're interested in today, though, is we're going to work with issues and pull requests, primarily issues. But so we want to be able to read and write to the GitHub issue repository, or GitHub issues on our repository. It does set the metadata to read only, which is fine. And if you want to do anything with pull requests, like I said, for Wildfly, we'll analyze what the pull request looks like, and it'll actually update the comment to let us know that the format's not right, or we're missing something, or what have you. So you'll want pull requests, but you can do a bunch of other permissions there as well, if you so choose. Now, once we give it permission, we obviously need to tell it what we actually want to listen to. We told it what we can do to the project. Now we need to tell it, let us know when these things happen. And again, you've got a lot of options here. They're a little more coarsely grained than the permissions, but we want issues, as you can see there, hopefully. Issues opened, edited, deleted, transferred, a bunch of stuff there. Pull request reviews, if you want to do anything at pull request review comments. We'll go and check those. If you don't check that, it's not going to send any events to you, which makes sense, but I found out the hard way when I was setting up my demo. It wasn't working, and I realized I forgot to click that box. So we're going to set that. And then lastly, if this is internal only, you know, if it's something for your a corporate project, then maybe you only want it on one account. But if you want to use it externally, either as a commercial offering or, you know, an open source thing, you can tell it on any account. I'll just tell it on this one just to keep it simple. We'll click create. Now our app is created. And you notice here at the top it says you must generate a private key in order to install your GitHub app. That's going to secure the communications on the wire back and forth. So we're going to click that, and that really just takes us to the bottom of the page, generate a private key, and it's going to want us to download this, which you're going to need to do because we'll need that in just a minute. Let's go. I'm going to put all this in temp. All right, so we've saved our private key. Now we can scroll back up to the top. And if we refresh, warning's gone away, key is on the account. We will need one more piece of information from this when we set up our app. That's the application ID. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. So we'll flip through this, make sure I haven't forgotten anything. There's Mr. Smee. He was my favorite. All right, so that webhook URL, the Quarkus app in dev mode. Who here has used Quarkus before? Oh, thank you. Yeah.
That's an opportunity.
It's I love it. And for the record, I started using it before I joined Red Hat, so I'm not just getting paid to say that it's great. But it has what's called a dev mode, where it will do live reloading. So as you make changes to your application, it'll recognize that and automatically recompile. So if you need to add an endpoint to your REST service, create the method, annotate it, save, make a request to it. It will notice that the code has changed. It'll recompile it, change that without bringing your application down, and now your endpoint works. Generally speaking, I've run into some weird corner cases where if it's like a really massive change, it just can't handle it. But generally speaking, once you start your application in dev mode, you don't have to restart it, which is super nice. And also in dev mode, if you have a database, a Kafka cluster, whatever, if your application is configured correctly, it'll spin up all of these services for you It'll start a Postgres database and inject the data source for you. It'll start your Kafka cluster and give you all the information you need to connect and stuff, all for free, which is super nice. You don't have to set up a dev. I got to install Postgres here and Kafka there and Redis and all this stuff. It'll do it all using test containers for you. Super nice. But in dev mode, Quarkus will recognize that it's in dev mode. The extension will then look for what your web proxy URL is, and it will facilitate that communication for you. So it's completely hands-off, which is super nice. All right, register. We've gone through permissions, the final steps. Click create, save the key, install the app. We do need to go back and do that. All right, so we need to install the app, and that just is basically going to associate the application with an application or with an account and one or more repositories. So I can have it access all the repositories in my account or specific ones. I'm pretty big on limiting exposure to things to just what you need. And so if something goes really crazy, you can't delete a bunch of repositories. So I have a GitHub App Playground app that I've been using. So we'll do that, and then we click install. And now the application's installed on that repository. You can make changes here if you want to. And we'll click back to there because we're going to need that app ID. All right. All right. So now we get to the Java code. That's what we're here for. The Quarkus has a nice command line utility that you can use to create applications, add extensions and things. And we'll use that here just to make it real simple. All it's really going to do is create a Java project for you using either Gradle or Maven. Take your pick. The default is Maven, and that's what we'll be using here. I think you can download the binary if you want. I install it via SDKman if you're familiar with that library. I think it's might be in Homebrew if you're on a Mac. So I just SDKman install Quarkus and off we go. So we're going to execute the command. We want to create an app. We tell it we want to use the Quarkus GitHub App extension. And I didn't change. Quarkus GitHub App Demo was what I was using, and that is really hard to type. So I changed that, but I forgot to change the slide. So, but basically, you want to give it the group and artifact that you want to deploy this under for, Maven Central or what have you. So, we'll open a new window. All right, so we're going to execute that. And here's where I'm hoping Wi-Fi is going to work okay. Hey, well, there we go. So it created the app. Everything was already downloaded, so that was kind of anticlimactic. But if we go look in that directory, it's just a real basic Maven project. Uses the Maven wrapper. So you don't even have to have Maven installed if you don't want. You just need to have Java and the Quarkus. And I am going to use IDEA for this. So, free plug for the sponsor. All right. So, pretty boring, basic application there. And we're going to start. We'll create.
Jason?
Yes.
Zoom in.
Zoom in. I meant to change the font before I got here. Oh, no. Custom font. Is that better?
Yeah, it is.
I can go bigger.
A notch even bigger. Well, we're on the back, so yeah, it should be.
I'll go bigger just in case it's hard to see on the camera. There, that is humongous. That's great. All right, so we want to create a new Java class, and we're going to call this, you can call it anything you want. We'll call it issue processor. It probably needs a package, but whatever. All right, remember I said it's completely CDI based, so there's nothing special you need to do. And I'm going to copy and paste code because you guys don't want to see me fumble over some typing. There's a keystroke that'll increase that. Well, font, there we go. We'll bump that up to 20.
Option probably would be helpful as well, presentation mode.
So what was that again?
Presentation mode. Just do like double shift and tap presentation mode. And right, just type presentation.
Oh.
Yeah.
Presentation mode.
Yep. Yeah.
Do I need to turn that on?
No,
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I've not used that, so. All right. So this is just, it's a class, it has a single method. There's nothing special about it other than this at issue.opened. So what this is going to do, the Quarkus is going to use a CDI interceptor, I think is the term. So it's going to, it knows that this is listening for a specific event, like an issue has been opened. Excuse me. So when this starts up, it's going to wire all that stuff together and listen for issues open. When it gets notification of that, it's going to call this method. Hopefully. We'll see. And the nice thing about this is it's going to set up the configurations you need here for IDEA. I don't know how it's going to behave under Eclipse or NetBeans or VS Code because I don't use those, so I honestly don't know. But here in IDEA, it's got the runtime configuration already configured. So I can just click the debug button and we can see it's going to build. I forgot a step. See, well, this is the, well, that's the startup. Let me switch back over here. So I got excited. You do need to create an environment file. Obviously, you need to tell the application how to talk to the how to talk to GitHub. So we're going to create a file called .env. I'm going to paste that in there. I usually do this in VI because, as you'll see here in a minute, it's a little easier. In fact, I'm in the wrong window. That's fine. All right, so you need to create an environment file, and this is going to give you the configuration it needs to talk to GitHub. So in this case, the numeric app ID, we talked about that, and that is going to come from right here. So we'll just copy and paste that. The name here, you can call it whatever you want to. That's not super important. The sme.io.url. Let's copy that from the browser location tab. Go and zoom in there. The secret, we left that blank, so we don't need to enter that here necessarily. And this is why I use VI for this part, because it does need to know your private key and so we do that, and it's a properties file, so all the fun that comes with that, you gotta have a little all right, so that's the the last we have to see that. All right, now I should be able to just start using that, but I'm going to stop and restart just to make sure, so you can see what it looks like when it starts up cleanly. All right, there we go. So you can see the Quarkus main thread is up. You can see the features installed. It may or may not be of interest to you, but that's what that looks like. So now let's go back over here to our GitHub repository. There's nothing special about this repository. It's just there. It does have a couple files that I'll show you in just a minute. But we want to see an issue open, and we want to see our app respond to that. So we're going to click New Issue. We're going to click Test and Submit Issue, and we'll sit here and pray for a minute. There we go. So the debugger trips, and here we are in our IDE. So the issue payload is it's a normal Java object. It's using a library that Kosuke from CloudBees and Jenkins fame wrote that kind of translates this giant JSON file, and we'll see that JSON in just a minute. But he's got Java models for all of that, so you don't have to deal with JSON directly, which is super nice. But you can see the issue that was open, the action, who sent it, what repository it was on, all sorts of great information about the event. And what we want to do then is just say hello for my GitHub app. And if we come back over here, there's our comment, which is super cool. So that's really all you have to do to it. Obviously, there's more functionality that's exposed, but you see we didn't do anything real special to get JSON to parse it and make REST calls. It's all wrapped up for us in a nice, neat bow. Someone did that work for us, which is great. But the point of this framework is that we don't have to. We can make use of their libraries. So to just kind of give you an example of, well, I've got a more complex example, but before I do that, I want to, and there's the slide on that, I want to talk about configuration before we get to a little more complex example. Because that's kind of cool and neat. You know, the geek in me is kind of amused by all that. But a real-world application is going to have a more complex use case. One of the things that we do for Wildfly is when anyone really, I think it was built more for community commitments or submissions. When someone opens a PR against Wildfly, the Wildfly bot will take a look at all the changes in that pull request, and we have a configuration file that says for this directory, this engineer is responsible for that. So if you make a change to micrometer or OpenTelemetry on Wildfly, it's going to ping me on the PR, so I know to go look at it. So that just doesn't sit out there waiting for someone to come along and notice, because that happens sometimes. We're all busy. So this kind of helps take care of some of that for us. So what does that look like? Well, your app can be configured per repository, so it's not one configuration you share across all the apps necessarily. It can be, on your host, but per repository config is just the .github directory, which is where all your workflow stuff is for CI, and you give it a name. The name doesn't matter. You'll specify that when you wire it together. It can be in one of three formats: JSON for those of us that are, I would say sane. YAML, which is actually what I'm going to use, because somewhere Bruno, if you know him, is cringing because we're going to demo YAML, and text. I have no idea what that looks like, to be honest with you, but it does support it. Seems kind of weird, just free-form text, but if you have a use case where that is appropriate, you've got support for it. And another nice thing about this framework is it's going to automatically deserialize that into your model and inject that into your application. So you don't have to read stuff off the wire and parse things. It's all done for you. So to do that, we're going to define just a Java class. And this is kind of a contrived example. The nested config, we're not going to really do anything with, but it's there to show you if you have a complex data model that you need in your configuration, you can do that with just nested classes, and the parser is going to handle all that for us. We'll actually have the data there, we're not going to do anything with it. But what I want to demonstrate is the can comment. Let's say for some reason we only want certain people to be able to comment on an issue. We can control that, and that's what we're going to demonstrate here. To get to that config file, we're going to add a new parameter to our method signature. You can see here on line 2, we've got @config file. We give it the name, so that's how. Yes, sir.
So I'm clear, is that config file, that's something that you created, or that's?
This is what I created. Yeah. You know, as you're designing your app, you'll think, what does my configuration data model look like, and you'll create a class that will embody that. Yeah, and then we'll reference this class right here on the method signature, and we give the name of the file so it knows what to get from GitHub, and then give it a name. So we'll go ahead and testing. We'll come back to that. I'm going to steal another method here. We'll come down here to the enforce can comment. I was in my hotel room double checking all this to make sure that I had all the pieces together, and copy and paste was failing me. So hopefully it'll cooperate today. So I'm just going to copy that Java file. Again, nobody wants to watch me type and fumble through that. Of course, I called it Twilio. We'll send a fake message here in a minute. If you want to configure Twilio, you'd probably use GitHub secrets rather than putting in a file in your repository. But that's really just there to say you can do pretty much what you want to with it. This is the line we're truly interested in. So we've got this configured in our app. We'll come back to that in just a minute. When an issue comment is created, we're going to get an event fired. We're going to listen for that here. We'll get the payload, and we want to see what the config file looks like. So now we need to provide the config from the repository. So if we go back to GitHub and look at the code, here in the GitHub directory, I have bot-config.yaml, and this is just a real simple, text file. I'm going to go and comment that out, or change that, just so this will actually work. So this file will be retrieved implicitly by our application, by Quarkus on our behalf, deserialized and delivered right here. So we'll set a breakpoint right there. Now I'm going to test Quarkus dev mode, and hopefully I don't look like a chump here, and hopefully it's going to work for me. So if we come here and we comment something, okay, there were enough changes that we're going to have to restart it. Now hopefully, this usually comes later in the presentation, but I do want to show you this. This is pretty cool. From SME, If you go to your channel, well, it didn't actually show it on that. This will show you all the things that have been delivered to your application. It doesn't show the test comment, which is kind of interesting. So we'll just make another one here. Let's check permissions. Permissions and events. We have issues. And down here, events, issue, comment. Aha! I even warned you, and I did it right in front of you. So it may have worked without restarting, but... So we'll try comment number 3. There we go. All right. Took me a minute. All right, so now back on our app, we've got our payload. We've got the comment that came in, the issue it's on, the action, so we know it was just created. We've got information on the sender, all that good stuff. And here's our config file. So Twilio, 1, 2, and 3. That may not match what's in GitHub. Not super important on that. This is the one that's interesting. So we've got Jason D. Lee 2 can comment. Frodo Baggins and Chuck Norris can all comment on this issue. My login, though, is Jason D. Lee, plain. So if we step through this and see what the user looks like, again, it's a real large JSON object with a bunch of data that is not super meaningful to me, at least. But we can get the user information and then get the user's login. And in this case, the login is my login, Jason D. Lee. And we want to look at 2 things. You don't have to do this, but if the user type is a bot, then we'll allow the bot to talk. That's how this app is identified to GitHub. So we make sure it's not bot so that we can actually do something from our application. But finally, we want to look at at config file.can comment, and that is going to be a list of strings. And this is, again, it's super simple, but does that list contain the login? And in this case, we need to do that. It does not contain my login, so that check is going to fail. So it's going to delete the comment, which is kind of hard to see because all the comments are the same, but you can see now that the JUG demo bot deleted the comment from Jason D. Lee. But now we can go back over to our repository just to show you that it can work. We'll edit that. We'll re-enable my login. Go back to our issue. I can comment. And we wait, and there, okay, so now we're back in here. And if we look at the config file, we now see that it has the updated information, so it's not going to be cached. You need to restart anytime you change your config. I set up like a Wireshark or something to kind of watch network, and I'm pretty sure every time an event comes in, it fetches that from the server. So there's some network traffic that you might need to contend with for that, but shouldn't be hopefully too bad. But now my login is in that list, so I can comment. So this does nothing at all. And we move on, and my comment remains. So pretty cool. We've got I've got 10 minutes, Baruch, is that right? Okay. He didn't say anything, so I'm just going to keep going. So like I said, there's a lot you can do. I'll show a page later. It shows all the events that you can respond to that there are models and, for lack of better, listeners for on the Quarkus side. I had a table of that in the presentation, but it was too big to fit on the page, so I just took it out. But it is in the GitHub, the Quarkus GitHub app documentation, if you want to see what all that looks like. So testing, let's take a look. Well, before we do that, because the test will include this, just to show that this is just a real simple CDI application. We can, if you want to send a message, whether it's text or SMS, whatever, we've got this fun little messaging service. It really doesn't do much of anything. So we'll just copy that class over. All right. Mailer's not there, but we can come back to our command line, tell it Quarkus, hope I have this order correct, extension add Quarkus mailer, and Quarkus mailer has been installed. So that's going to add the dependency to our POM or our Gradle build, so we don't have to mess with our build file unless we just really want to. Well, I don't have a Git repository there. So now we've added the POM. IDEA has updated, so now we're not getting errors on that. We also need to make this happy. We need to obviously add the injection and things like that. So we'll come back over here and just copy those to save a bit of time. All right, so nothing real special here. We're injecting. If you use CDI, that should be familiar to you. We've got some strings using the multi-line string feature there. If you haven't seen that in Java, that's kind of nice. So we can format our string and read it. So now, if the user cannot comment, it's going to send an email. I don't have a mail server set up, so we're not going to see that come through necessarily, but that's what it would do. And that is injected for us. Just to see that run, let's hi. Oh, I stopped it. That's why it's not answering. But see, now I can show off this cool SME feature. So again, all of the payloads that have been delivered, I can see here, and I can click there and redeliver this payload. And I don't actually have to go through and redo everything on the issue, on the PR. I can just resend the same payload, which is super nice. And that'll be real important when we come to look at testing here in just a minute. So now we're back in the same thing. We're going to get the user. The user can't comment, so we're going to delete it. And messaging service, you can see, is now has been created and injected for us via CDI. We're going to send our email and exit out. We go back to our issue, and we see that my comment was deleted. And in a production app, I would now have an email explaining to me that I can't comment, and I can go complain to somebody. So with all that testing, we're kind of racing through this, but I want to make sure you kind of see at least a piece of all this, and you can kind of fill in the gaps if you want to take it further. This is based on JUnit and Mockito. I don't think TestNG is supported, so if you're using TestNG, I'm sorry. You should use JUnit anyway. So. Kind of opinionated, but if you like TestNG, that's fine. But for whatever reason, TestNG does not support it. So this is what a test would look like. It's a pretty normal looking unit test if you do a lot of that, which I hope you are. It's got some annotations there on the class level to kind of hook into those frameworks. Got a test, and then we're just using I can't remember the name of the library offhand. We'll see in just a minute. But we're making kind of fake REST requests to the service. It's all in process. Yeah, so to make this work, we do need to add a couple more dependencies. We need to add the app testing library and Mockito JUnit. So we'll just copy that. I will modify the POM directly because it's a little quicker to copy and paste that. Although with this font this high, I see like 3 words on this. So it's a little trickier. Come on. Ordinarily, I'd have a property to define that, but I don't here. So we set the version. We introduce Mockito. There's a couple other things we need to do. So we will be able to test this from our desktop, or maybe on a plane or on a beach somewhere. You know, you may not have network. So we need to provide configuration file and a JSON file. The test framework for this will take a JSON file, and I'll show you how to get that in just a minute, that we have in our resource directory. It'll read that off disk and create the request using that, send it to your service, and then it'll take the JSON and parse it back into the model, just like we saw. So you don't actually have to have something hitting a GitHub repository to test this, which is super nice because there's network issues, security issues. We will create those files. Create a new directory here. Test resources. We'll need test Java here in a minute too, I guess, so we'll go and create that. All right, so there's our bot config. Now I'm actually going to copy these other files because they, like I said, they're pretty enormous. We'll copy a couple of those. All right, so we've got resources for the configuration and a couple of sample JSON files. Now, since I've done this before, I had a couple files I can copy. You obviously aren't going to have that, so you've got a couple options. You can come here and you can look at the payload. You can see the whole thing here. You can kind of browse through it, which is kind of nice. But while your app is running, you've started up, you're coding, you're doing some testing. Now you want to actually write a test for it. If you go to, if I can remember the URL correctly, yeah. Your app is listed on 8080, like any good web app does in dev mode. But if you go to 8080/replay, and apparently I've stopped the app, I need to quit doing that. Okay, so now 8080, waiting for events. Okay, an event has been delivered. So 8080/replay, this is the what they call the replay UI, and you can see all the events that have been delivered to your application. It is in a lot of ways just like the SME interface, but if you're not using SME and you would still like that functionality, this comes built in. So we can view the payload, and like I said, it's a very large, well, I say very large, it's a pretty hefty JSON file. They're probably bigger, and I'm grateful that we've moved from XML to JSON because that could be really bad. But you can click the replay button. That will do the same thing that SME does. It'll send that back to your app, and you can test your changes manually. But if you want to create a file that you can test with, you can click the copy button, and then go and see, that was what, an issue comment. So if we come over here to our issue comment creator JSON, you can call it whatever you want to. I just call it that because it makes it clear. And then you can paste the JSON in there, and you've got a test event you can use. I'm going to go and copy that ID. Well, I'll come back to that. It seems to need to really want to know what the ID is, so you might either set that to something like 1 that you can use, specify in your test, or copy and reuse it. But to see what that test looks like, we'll come here, and again, I'm just going to copy this test. Issue processor test. Now hopefully, in theory, I ran into this and kind of forgot. I think they moved that class, and I just haven't updated my my code yet to use that. So we'll downgrade to, I think it's 2.4.1. 2.4.2. This is where having a property would be super helpful. Maven home, okay. All right, now it's happy. So we've got our test class here. Got a bunch of imports there that you can look at if you're curious. We're going to use Mockito to mock the messaging service. So, you know, in your production code, you say you've actually got it connected to Twilio or a mail service, and you don't really want to test things on the network. You can mock it out. So we'll install a mock for that. We're not going to do a lot of stress testing on that. You know, specify behaviors and responses like you might typically do with the mock, but you can if you're interested. So the test issue opened, you know, given, and here we're actually going to, you can specify a config file in your test resources, or you can mock the config file itself. So what we're doing is, well, actually we are loading that from the file. You can specify it directly, but we're going to mock the config file with this name from the class path on that file. Right, so this is how we're going to wire in our test config, so our test will work. And, you know, so given this, when payload from class, we're going to send the issue open to JSON. See, remember when I said it wants to mock an issue. You can change this or change your test either way. I'll just copy and paste that. All right, so now if we run this, what this should do is send the issue opened event. Our app should comment, hello from my GitHub app, and then we'll verify that that is now on the issue. And here's hoping. And we got green. So it never touched GitHub, all on my local machine. Super, I can just run that over and over and over again. All right, as another example, where we do actually mock the config file, if you don't want to create a file on disk, or for some reason it needs to be more dynamic, we can test enforce can comment with an invalid user. So our config file can comment with just some user called nobody. And the JSON that we're going to send it from this right here is using my login name. So it's going to, this comment is from Jason D. Lee. He's not in the comment or can comment list. So this test we can verify that an email was sent with subject message. So if we run that, that should also come up green. And it didn't. It's probably something really stupid. We're kind of running out of time, so I won't debug that. But it did that to me yesterday too. It's going to be something dumb. But in theory, then also test with a valid user. We're going to run the same test, and we know that this is the user ID in the file. So in theory, this will probably also not work for the same reason. No, it did work. Interesting. It might be something with those messages. At any rate, I'm going to figure that out later because it's going to irritate me. But you can kind of see how you can write tests, and if you're used to writing, say REST-based tests, this should all look pretty familiar to you. So when we talk about leveraging your existing Java JVM expertise, we're really doing that. It's a very simple Java application. No real new libraries to learn other than a couple annotations and the wrapper around the model. So super simple and easy. So get you up and writing your GitHub apps as quickly as you can. So let's see if I've forgotten anything else. The replay UI, this is super helpful. You can kind of take a look at what's actually being delivered to make sure you're seeing what you think you are. And that's all I've got prepared. I do want to show I mentioned the Quarkus app documentation. If you go to the developer reference here on the left, it's going to show you all the event types here that you can listen for. And if you're familiar with the GitHub API directly, if you're dealing with that at the JSON or JavaScript, these are the event types here, and then these are the events you're going to listen for on in your Java code, which you'll annotate your method with, and this is the type that will be passed in. So for this event on GitHub, here's the event I listened for, here's the payload I'm expecting. So it'll give you that mapping. And there's a lot, as you can see. It is a giant table. A lot of good information here that, if you want to write one, you can kind of fill in some gaps. Injecting a GitHub instance, if you want to deal with GitHub directly, you can do that. GraphQL, a bunch of other stuff. Also, I will just mention, I didn't put this in the presentation because obviously it's long enough as it is, but you can have comment-based commands. We do that a lot. If we want to, if we want to retest a PR, sometimes we'll have issues with the CI environment, some weird network went down or machine died, or we want to rerun all the tests. We can go on the PR, type /retest, and WildflyBot has a command that is configured with this to watch for /retest, and it will talk to GitHub and then initiate all of those jobs again. We've got a fair number that we run on each pull request. So this lets us do that with just a quick comment. And then again from there, you can, when the comment comes in, hey, I've received this, is this user in a list of people that can actually issue that? Because we don't want just everybody hitting retest, because those CI cycles are not free, for example. But you can do that if you're familiar with writing like Java-based command line utilities. I think this is Pico CLI. Airline, okay. There's a number of frameworks up there for writing JavaScript or Java command line utilities. This is using Airline. But again, it's just a few annotations, give it the command, what you want to listen for, and then give it a runnable for what you want to do. Super flexible, really cool, and very, very simple. With that said, documentation is linked there. That QR code will take you to this presentation on my blog, so if you want a copy of it, you can scan that with your phone. If you want to look at some examples, the Quarkus bot is actually probably one of the more, I think it is more complicated, does more things than the Wildfly bot does. So if you want a pretty complicated example. Common House automation, if you're familiar with the Common House Foundation that was announced at DevNexus this year, if not a real big deal. But Erin, the lady that runs that, hates meetings, so she tries to do as much as she can through GitHub discussions, I think she calls it. So they'll actually do voting. So this bot will watch those discussions and see when people do +1, -1, it'll tally all that up and store it and then send out an announcement of the results. So that's another good example you can look at if you're interested. And the Quarkus starter, since none of you have used Quarkus, if you're familiar with the Spring Boot starter, this is very similar. It's a little web page. Fill out the form, select which libraries you want to use, click the button, and it downloads a file for you. You can pick Gradle if you want to, pick your Java version, and just a ton of Quarkus extensions that you can select there. So that said, are there any questions? We can try like real live coding and see what happens, but.
So do you get like the same feature in the command line too, like the starter?
Oh, the little banner when it comes up.
Again, repeat the question for.
Oh,
So you get the same feature with the command line Quarkus as the starter website?
the same. You get the same feature with the command line. What feature do you mean?
So you said like use the Quarkus create app when you create the application first.
Oh, this will do basically the same thing that with the command line as is with all command lines. You have to know what you want it to do and like specify. And you can do Quarkus extension add over and over and over to add things to an existing project. And here, this will do the same thing. It just kind of gives you a list that you can select and punch the buttons. But yeah, it will produce the same. If you did one in one and did it again in the other and diffed them, would they be exactly the same? I don't know, but they should be functionally identical. What's actually generated may be slightly different in format or whatever, but the functionality should be the same. But certainly the Quarkus CLI is going to be a very flexible and featureful way to manage that. I don't use it a whole lot because sometimes it'll reformat my POM file and that irritates me. It changes the indentation and I have to go back and fix it sometimes, but I think it's gotten better there. But you should be able to use either. Does that answer your question? Okay. Now, GitHub Apps aside, I love Quarkus. If you're writing EE apps, it's especially like REST-based stuff. It's super easy, very light, and very easy to use. Great support in IDEA and VS Code. Any other questions? You want to see a picture of my dog again, don't you? Kidding. All right, well, that's all I've got. So, Baruch, it's off to you.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you very much. That was great. And live demo. Obviously you saw that it's live, no cheating.
I'm always nervous when I do that.
Yeah, that's fine. And so the way we do the raffle, I need my random.org. And then we'll do the raffle. Oh.